Musicians hate me for showing you these chord secrets. I could show anybody how to create complex chords knowing nothing but numbers. If you can count, you can create complex chords. So let me show you guys a recent comment we got on our video. Let's switch screens here. This is from Artifacts, which I'm subscribed to on YouTube. He has about 80,000 subscribers, and he's been coming at me nonstop on Twitter. He just has a gripe with everything. So he says that we're going to read it word for word. So let me show you guys the system before we get to his comment. So the system that I teach people is if you close your eyes, pick any note, okay? And in this case, the note is E. Let's say you want to make the E minor 7th chord, okay? Every chord has a chord code. So in this case, the minor 7th chord is 0, 3, 7, 10. So 0 is where you start. And then all you have to do is count up the keyboard to finish the chord code. So E is 0 in this case. And then we're going to count up our keyboard note by note. 1, 2, 3. There we have the minor third. 4, 5, 6, 7. So we're playing 0, 3, and 7. That's the minor chord. And then 8, 9, 10. You have E minor 7th. It always makes a minor 7th chord no matter where you are on the keyboard. So giving you guys that context of my system called Chord Codes, which I created years ago. It was my original series called Chord Codes, and I invented the whole concept. It's based around integer notation. So it's about how to build chords from numbers using integers. Now it's based on integer notation, but we call it chord codes. So Artifact says this method only works for root positions of a chord. The moment you move into chord inversions, this whole thing breaks apart. In your system, C major is 0, 4, 7. So what he means by 0 is, 0 is your root note. Count up your notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So in this case, we'll play C major to keep it simple. Okay, so he says 0, 4, 7 makes the major C major. However, what if you play C and E over a G? So he means an inversion like this. Okay, the second inversion. What if you play it this way? Okay, he's saying. And he says that is still C major, which is correct. That's still C major chord. It has the qualities of a C major chord, yet it would not work with your numeric system for a major chord. And here's where he's incorrect. Okay, because let me read his whole paragraph, actually. Let me go back a second. He says it has the qualities of a C major chord, yet it would not work with your numeric system for a major chord, which is incorrect. He says, however, in regular music theory, as if I don't teach regular music theory, he says, however, in regular music theory, both would be named as a C major. I've never said that wasn't. The inversion would just be named C over G. Okay, G in the bass, C major over G. Would you name that 0, 5, 9? No, it would still be a major chord. We just name it as the second inversion of a major chord. Okay, so I do teach traditional music theory, but as far as people getting into music theory, them learning scales and inversions up front is very convoluted. I've taught a lot of people around the world. They don't comprehend scales and first, third, fifth scale degrees, inversions and altered chords. They don't understand that right away. They know how to count though, and that's why I teach people chord codes. It's the starting point. It also gets very advanced. Well, let's go back to his commentary, because then I'll talk about this myth. He says, finally, you are even showing how convoluted your method is. So he's saying that people can't count, basically, because when you get into making the chord progression, you suddenly switch to working with regular scale degrees. Again, it's not that I don't teach regular music theory. This is just a fast way for people to make chords and understand what a chord actually is. I do teach traditional music theory. If you go to my courses at busyworksbeats.com/music theory, you'll see for yourself. Okay. Then he says, making this even more confusing to a new producer, if you ask me. Well, we have thousands of customers that say the opposite. He says, it ain't that hard to learn intervals of a major or minor scale. Yes, it is. Because what is an interval? An interval is a number. Let me quickly dispel half of what he's saying here. What is a minor third? A minor third, for it to even exist, requires 2 points. You need a tonic note, and you need to figure out where the minor third is. So let's say we want to make a minor third from where we at F. We're going to count up 3 notes, 1, 2, 3. It's called the minor third. You can't have a minor third without the tonic note. It doesn't exist. In order to get to the third, you need the first. So how do you get to the third without the first? Okay, so when his whole argument is about chord codes and inversions, my question back to him was, who starts the chord outside of the root position? Like if I'm making a chord progression, like F minor 9, for example. Okay, I'm gonna define that chord as F minor 9. I'm thinking, okay, I wanna build a chord in F minor 9. Now, if I wanna make changes to this chord, now in minor 9, I probably would make changes to, so let's just make this F minor. So if I wanna make changes, let's say I want C in the bass, and we'll stack it up. Okay, then I'm gonna be moving the notes around to figure out the altered chord. Or let's say I just played that naturally and I wanna figure out the chord type. This is why chord codes are so important, because I could visually look. It's probably better to watch this in a DAW, but I could visually see, okay, we're starting at F. I can see that the third is 3 notes away from F. Okay, so that shows me it's a minor third and a minor chord most likely. And then I can count C and pull that up an octave. It's gonna be 7 notes from the tonic, so that means this is an F minor chord. Chord codes are used to identify chords. Like, most people don't know what separates a diminished chord, okay, from a minor chord. But when you count it out using chord codes, you can say, oh, a diminished chord is 036, a minor chord is 037. So number gives clarity. Let's go back to his comic, because I want to, again, go deeper with showing people this concept. Forgot where I left off here. Okay, and then he says, it ain't hard to learn the intervals in the major and minor scale. I never said it was hard. I said it was more complex. And when you know one, you can figure out the other for any key with little to no effort. That's not really true, because I could tell you the C major scale, okay, but the F major scale, I have to sit here and figure it out. Okay, tonic, okay, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. That takes a lot of work, and then I have to memorize the notes. But teaching that way is for musicians who play straight onto a piano. You're learning by shapes more than you're learning by whole steps and half steps. And this is the fundamental issue that I had as a music producer trying to learn music theory, is because our system in FL Studio, Ableton, Logic Pro, we don't use a piano that's like we're playing piano straight on. From our view, we're producing sideways, okay? So from our view, we're looking at the piano roll sideways. We can't use shapes to build sideways. It doesn't work. So that's why my chord code system is so powerful, because it translates even if you're a musician or if you're a music producer who just works inside of a DAW, because now you can visually count up the keyboard and it makes sense. Whereas traditional videos you guys will watch on music theory, they're going to teach you guys based on chord shapes. And the issue with chord shapes is that that's for people who play straight onto a keyboard. You can't transpose that sideways. It's very hard to learn sideways. And then he says, your system is a lot less logical and useful than you think it is, buddy. I added the buddy in there because that's how he tries to talk to me online. It has more shortcomings than the already widely accepted theory. Okay, so here's the problem that most people don't understand. Let's talk about the problems with traditional music theory. So let's say I wanted to teach you guys music theory. My camera's a little crooked. Let's fix this. All right, so let's say I wanted to teach you guys music theory with the traditional way, which is the scale first. In order to make a chord, okay, which is the first, the third, and the fifth, you have to learn a scale. So that's the first hurdle, okay, which is, let's play all the white notes starting from C. So now you have to understand what a scale is and then what the scale is defined as. So that's 2 steps involved already. Now the third step is, okay, we want to create a chord. We're going to play the first, the third, and the fifth. Now you have to understand what scale degrees are. That's the third hurdle in the way. The first note, third note, and the fifth note. Okay? Then you have to understand and memorize the chord types, because without the chord code system, you don't know what actually makes a chord. Because if I play the 1, the 3, and the 5 in a minor scale, it's a completely different chord. And how do you know which scale you're in if you haven't determined what the tonic is? See how many steps are involved just to make a simple chord? I don't know why my chord thing's not showing us the chord type. There we go, C minor. All right, so that's why I teach what I teach, is because we want to skip all the the in-between steps to get straight to a chord. If I want to create a chord, let's say I want to create a minor 11th chord. Let's start here at E. The chord code is going to be 0, 1, 2, 3. So 0, 3, it's a minor third. 4, 5, 6, 7, that's a minor triad all the time. 8, 9, 10, this is a minor 7th chord all the time. Okay, 11, 12, 13, 14, this is a minor 9th all the time. Okay, and then Okay, so we have 14, 15, 16, 17. So it's 0, 3, 7, 10, 14, 17. It's a lot of numbers, but we have chord code charts for free. Go to busyworksbeats.com/music theory. How did I just create a minor 11th chord without a scale, without skipping scale degrees? I didn't have to memorize what the root position is. I'm just playing a chord based on numbers. And what if I go out of key? And here's where his argument falls apart, because what if I go out of key? What if I'm choosing a chord from a whole different mode or whole different scale that is not in the E minor scale? Okay, so if I go from, let's do minor to major, let's see, let's do a different chord. Let's do D minor. Let's say I want to do this like a jazz technique, Tyler the Creator style. That's not in the same scale. That's a borrowed chord. So using traditional music theory, you have to know how to even get to this chord. So what if you just wanted to play a major ninth chord right after a minor ninth? That's where chord codes comes into play. It's based on intent rather than following somebody else's blueprint of what's going on. Now, do scales help to understand stuff? Yes. But in jazz, you're going outside the scale system most of the time. My thing's showing up. Let's do that one more time. There we go. Here's the altered chord substitute, tritone substitution. Actually, not an altered chord, but here's the, okay, the sharp 9. Boom. Now tell me what scale that came from. Okay, you can figure out a root note and all this, but my point is, it was built on intent more than it was built on you have to do this. What about D minor into an altered chord? Okay, those notes are not in the scale. So how do you define that? Now what I'm going to do is play random notes on my keyboard. We're going to make a random chord, and we're going to use chord codes to identify the chord type. Okay, so I'm going to play random notes with a random voicing too. So this is a super random voicing. So we have E, A, C, and then A up an octave. So let's go into the DAW and let's, make this chord in the DAW. So we have E. Okay, then we have A. We have C, and then we have, I believe, what was it? A up an octave. Okay, so now I can use chord codes to figure out this chord type simply by counting. So one of parts of his argument was that, what if you started in a different position than the root position? Okay, let's apply this to a real world scenario. So here, let's say you might assume that E is the root note. So we're going to start at E. So this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's called a perfect fourth, which you learn from your chord codes and intervals charts. Just go to busyworksbeats.com/music theory. Okay, so that's 5, 6, 7, 8. So then 8 is not a typical part of chord codes. 8 is seen in an augmented chord, which is 0, 4, 8. So if I wanted to make an augmented, it would be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's an augmented chord all the time. So I know that that's rarely used. So it's probably not the starting chord of a chord progression. Okay. And then we have here, so now I would say to myself, okay, so E is probably inverted. So let's pull this back up and then we count from A. So we have A, which is 0, 1, 2, 3, which is the minor third. Okay, just to show you guys on screen, minor third. And then, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So play all those notes together, A minor. So then you realize the way you were playing it on the keyboard, for any time that you may play a random chord and you're like, dang, I want to memorize that chord for the next time, or I want to transpose that or transcribe that into my DAW. This is a system to help you transcribe really complex chords, breaks it into real small pieces so you can understand what the heck's going on. So now you go, okay, the way I played the chord was the second inversion because I'm playing the root and the third up an octave from E. So now you played this chord, E, A, and C. Okay, so that's why chord codes are so important. Now let's count from C. Now we can visually see A is already used in the chord, and then we ask ourselves, what is A in the chord? In that case, that was the root note just raised up an octave. So now I know we're playing A minor. It's just revoiced. Okay, so that's why chord codes are so important. Another thing is, again, what if I want to go from the minor chord to outside of the scale with the D major ninth chord? You have to think like a jazz piano player, which is, I think most people get stuck with music theory because they're trying to learn a formula to intent. And music theory is not a starting point. It's something to analyze what you've already done. So most people approach music theory as, here's a starting point, you must start from here. Whereas when you're playing and freestyling, you're just doing stuff. Now, to explain it to somebody else, you need to break it down into pieces. And that's what music theory is for. It's an analysis tool more than it is an intentful tool. And I think that's why people get stuck with music theory. So let's go back to that picture so I can see the rest of the statement here. So this method only works. So we just showed and proved to you guys it does not only work for building root position chords. I even showed you how to break down complex chords into simple chord codes to make it super simple to know what the heck's going on. So we went over chord inversions. We went over the first part. Then he says, finally, you are even showing how convoluted your method is, because when you go into making the chord progression, you suddenly switch to scale degrees. Again, did I mention anything about scale degrees going from D minor to D minor ninth? Let's make a real beat without referencing a scale at all. Okay, so this is where, again, people get stuck because they're just stuck in their ways, truthfully. Let me load up a plugin here. All right, so let's say you have a chord progression and you're trying to do something new, so you're not trying to overly think a scale. So let's make the D minor ninth chord. Okay, next we want to do a 2-5-1, so we're going to use what's called a dominant ninth chord. Now this is technically in key so far, so we're in the key of C major. But now we want to do what's called an altered chord. So we're going to take two notes of this G dominant ninth chord and take them out of key. Okay. Now we're really going to go out of key using a tritone substitution. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so that's the jazz and R&B sound. Let's add the major ninth chord, which is 0, 4, 7, 11, 14. So we're going to go here to the root note. Okay, now we want to go, let's say we want to do key modulation. Let's do, use A minor scale, which I do teach at busyworksbeats.com/music theory. I never said traditional music theory was not taught in my website. I just said that the way people teach you initially is confusing, which it is. Okay, now let's create, here we have, let's do it like a ninth. Let's pull this up an octave. So notice I'm doing chord voicing here to make this more unique for R&B. And let's do the dominant second, this is called a secondary dominant chord, okay, into A minor ninth. So I've been teaching this stuff. I never demonized traditional music theory. I just think the reason I couldn't understand it was because it was taught in an archaic way. So yeah, let's hear what this chord progression sounds like. And let's see how many notes are out of the scale. Okay, so, you know, you guys got to realize, like, when people critique stuff, I'll say it for myself, put it this way. My system is so much of a different way of thinking that I think musicians hate it because it seems too simple. And then when I show you guys how advanced this stuff gets, you know, then they have nothing to say. So I'll leave it here. We don't want to make this video too long, but just want to show you guys magic. I can show anybody how to go from not knowing anything about music theory. As long as you can count, you can make a chord. Let's say you want to make a minor ninth chord. Okay, there's a chord code for that, which you guys will get the chord code chart for free. So it's 0, 3, 7, 10, 14. Basically, I'm going to close my eyes, pick a random note. Okay, so we landed on G. All I have to do is start here at G. This is the root note. Now we're going to count up the keyboard to finish out the chord code. So the chord code is 0, 3, 7, 10, 14. Again, it's easier when you get the chord code chart. So 0, just count up your keys note by note. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Play those together. That's already at the G minor chord. 8, 9, 10. G minor 7. 11, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Let's pull this up an octave. It's a little low. Let's go up an octave. And we have the G minor ninth chord. That's simple. You didn't have to study scales. You didn't have to study jazz theory. You didn't have to study chord extensions. You didn't have to study scale degrees and how to make certain chord types. You're just going based on what sounds good to you. It's called playing by ear, by the way. Okay, because what if we transpose, just like I just did just now? What key are we in? What scale are we in? It doesn't matter. It sounds good. That's the stuff you guys can learn. So go to busyworksbeats.com/music theory. I'll see you guys on the other side. Subscribe if you're new. Peace.